Welcome to part 2 of the fundamentals of marksmanship. Just remember, fundamentals of marksmanship is the foundation of rifle craft. In this video, we're going to be talking about trigger control, and that's what's coming up next on Into the Wind. Trigger control is extremely important. So there's a lot of other things that we can get wrong, but if we get our trigger control wrong, if we jerk the trigger, just about guarantee you're going to have a miss. So we don't want to think of this as something that we do, but something that is a process that we do, if that makes sense. So let's kind of see what this looks like. You really want to think about this as, think about pulling a rubber band and just slowly pulling it back. And so I got a little, again, top-notch graphic here on the board. So we're gonna just assume this is our trigger pull right here. So however you want to think about it, if you got a 5-pound trigger, we're gonna start slowly pressing on the trigger, and we're gonna continue to increase our pressure very slowly. This mark here, this is where the trigger breaks, where the gun goes off, but we're actually going to continue to increase the pressure just a little bit. And then after recoil, once the gun settles back down and we employ proper recoil control, we're actually going to be back on target, and we're going to still hold it back. So we're going to hold the trigger back all the way through recoil until the gun settles back down, and then that's when we'll release it and cycle the gun again. Now, if you practice this very slowly, it's going to appear, like, how do these guys do this so fast? Well, this is what they're doing. They're just doing it at a much faster pace, and it always starts slow. So let's kind of see what that looks like. So this is my Tika. This is a 2-stage trigger. So 2-stage trigger basically is it has this little bit of a wall here. So I can pull the trigger a little bit, and then it stops, and there's a wall. So I normally start there. So I'll get on the trigger, I'll get on target, and I'll pull that little bit of slack out to that wall. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly increase the pressure until it breaks. And then I'm going to continue increasing the pressure just a little bit. And I'm going to hold it back until I'm back on target. Now, typically, I'm spotting for myself. So I will actually hold that back for quite some time. I'll see where my bullet hits, and then at that point in time, I'll go ahead and make my correction. So what we don't want is something like where we jerk the trigger on and off. Maybe I should put that a different way. Or even if you come up to that wall and then jerk it, that's not what we're wanting. We want a nice, slow, and even press. So I would, at the very beginning, I'm going to recommend try to do this for, take as long, almost as long as you possibly can to pull the trigger. So don't just pull the trigger in 1 or 2 seconds. Get that slack out if you have a 2-stage trigger, or if you have a 1-stage trigger, just rest your finger on the trigger and try to take like 3 or 4 seconds and pull the trigger. So there's my slack. So I got it pulled back. I'm going to slowly increase the pressure. So let's count it. 1, 2. So it broke on 2. I still increased the pressure because there's a little bit of a play. Oh, you can see that there's a little bit of play in the back. So I'm pulling that all the way through. So let's look at that again. So 1, 2, and I continue to pull pressure back on the trigger and hold it back through recoil until the rifle settles down and I'm back on target and I can spot my shot. One more time. So pull the wall to the wall, and 1, 2, 3. So it's about 2.5 when it broke, and I'm gonna continue to hold it back. So you really want to try in the very beginning. You want to try to take somewhere between 3 seconds, maybe even 5 seconds. Take a really long time and just slowly increase that pressure until it breaks, and then even after it breaks, continue to increase the pressure just enough to hold it back. So even when it breaks, so I'm start pulling, even when it breaks, I'm still just slightly pulling it back. And then what this looks like up to speed is we can take that pressure out. We're slowly doing it now. I'm doing it much faster, but I'm still slowly increasing and slowly pulling back. So I get an even pull all the way through until it breaks. And then after it breaks, and still increasing that. So that's kind of what it looks like. So for the next exercise, what I'd actually like us to do is I'll get down here on the floor and we are going to add our controlled breathing with our trigger control. So let's do that. All right, so I hope you like my face because we're gonna be up and close. So we're gonna focus on trigger control, but we're gonna go ahead and add in our controlled breathing. So I'm gonna really accentuate my breathing so you can hear, just so you can kind of see the process of how this starts out. And then just to kind of give you a heads up is when we get into dry fire practice, this is exactly what we're going to be doing. So if you want to go ahead and start that with these two exercises combined on the rifle. You can start the controlled breathing just whenever you would like. If you want to focus on trigger control as well, whenever you like, just keep the safety rules in mind. Empty chamber, no ammo, everything like that, point in safe direction. Go ahead and start focusing on your trigger control, and then add those together as the very beginning of your dry fire practice. But we will definitely be getting into that. So let's go ahead and get on our rifles. Now, normally what I like to do is I just like to lay on here. I'll just close my eyes and kind of relax, and then focus on my breathing until I get my breathing pretty slow. So I'm going to accentuate my breath just so you can hear it, kind of see how we do this. So I'm counting, just counts of 4 in my head. So So it goes something like that. I hope this isn't too goofy for you guys, but this is definitely something that helps get me nice and relaxed, get my blood full of oxygen, and pretty much once I kind of get focused on that, once you get into that pace, or normally once I get out to the range, I do a little bit of dry fire practice just to kind of get used to that trigger before I actually start firing. Get nice and relaxed, and in my opinion and my experience, it has significantly helped me stay on target, shoot better for a longer period of time. So again, that was the 2 combined. Let's go ahead and just focus strictly on the trigger control. So let's get up nice and close. And I'll roll some other video in here. But I like to just get on the trigger, focus on your breathing nice and relaxed. So this is a double stage. So I got this little bit of room here just to take up. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my breathing. Typically on my exhale, I'll go ahead and get to that wall. And then I'm gonna slowly increase the pressure. So let's kind of count it off. 1, 2, 3, 4, still pulling back, and now I'm holding. So through recoil and all that, I'm gonna hold the trigger. I can spot my shot, hit. If I need to make my correction, I can do all that. Get back on target, focus on my breathing, pull to that wall, exhale, natural respiratory pause, increase the pressure until it breaks, hold, and just like that. All right, so I believe that is it for this. Definitely, it is a very important thing to practice. So that's the beginning of our dry fire practice. Again, I'll do a whole series on dry fire practice because we're going to be adding in a ton of different stuff. So I do like to start out slow with those two things. So get ahead of the game, start practicing that. And then once we add the other things in, it'll just make it that much easier because there is multiple things that we have to focus on all at once. So once you get the breathing, controlled breathing down, trigger control, those are going to kind of be second nature. So you're not really going to be thinking about those. You're going to practice this so much that that's just second nature. And then you'll be focusing on a lot of other things until those become second nature. And then basically all of your fundamentals of marksmanship will be almost just second nature. Anytime you get on a rifle, your body's just going to go straight to these processes. And then you can really focus on things like reading wind, calling your shot, making your adjustments, and focusing on your impacts. So I think that is it for this video. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for part 3 of the fundamentals of marksmanship.